Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Gen Z podcast. This is episode 121, and I'm so excited to say I have my dear friend, Mary Lou Costabile, back with me, Miscellaneous Magic. So she was on a few episodes ago. I don't remember now. I got to look back, but we were talking about kind of just the energy, doing an energy report. And we talked about doing this quarterly, which I can't believe I think it's already like past what the quarter time would be because time flies. But Mary Lou texted me the other day. So I was like, I need to have you back on, and it's Mercury retrograde, and oh my God, everything's crazy. But she wanted to ask me some questions kind of about how my career shifted. And I was like, absolutely. You take the lead. It's amazing. So I'm so excited to have you back on today.
Thank you.
And this was just really perfect timing as last week, and you guys will hear this at that point, but not yet. So in a few weeks, it's not out yet, but it will be when you listen to this. Um, I interviewed a dear friend of mine who's also a Capital Jiu-Jitsu member, and he's a strength and conditioning coach, teacher, was a principal, and we talked about the pursuit of happiness. So a lot of people are trying to kind of transition and I think figure out what makes them happy, which is amazing, but that's not always the easiest thing. So I think it came as perfect timing that we're kind of talking about this stuff.
And I kind of cornered Jen in. I was contemplating, which I was going to literally set up a call with you to get some advice. Cause when I sat down, I thought about the transitions that I'm going in. And I don't know, some of your viewers might not know. My name's Mary Lou, and then my stage name, we'll call it, is Miscellaneous Magic. And that's how I
I
do
love it.
readings. And it came about me during the pandemic. And I just started honoring all of my gifts, and I haven't been looking back, although you do look back, which is why I I found myself in thought about how you were very much a pioneer of someone that transitioned many things at the same time, but your career was the biggest one. So I go, oh, Jen would be an amazing person to talk about this transition with. And then to go into the spiritual part, right? A lot of people are having a lot of awakenings with this energy. Um, I'm an amateur astrologer, but what I do is I channel messages to the collective. So I feel everything very deeply. And then I end up deep diving into astrology. And then I'm like, oh, this makes sense as to why I'm feeling this way. But I like to channel the messages first so that I know that they're more organic. And then I'll hear something like either Mercury's in retrograde, Pluto's in retrograde. We're moving into the age of the Aquarius. Something is always in alignment to what I'm feeling, what's already bubbling up to the surface. So on today's episode, I'm going to be interviewing Jen. And now I
Yay.
fully understand what it feels like to be you and be the person that's leading the interview. That's again another thing that you make look very easy and very graceful, because I think I'm actually sweating and wondering why I'm wearing heavy turtleneck sweater. So
I love this.
this is
Well, I did
lovely.
wear this shirt. I picked this shirt for you today, my spiritual gangster shirt.
Which
Let
is
your
what you
soul
are.
guide the way.
Yes.
And you will be happy to know, just on that note, real quick, too, with the astrology. Last week, fitness class, I teach a fitness class every Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we were talking about Mercury retrograde, and I was explaining it. And we were talking about astrology. And I think it's just really great sometimes to have a reason behind like what you're feeling, right?
Mhm.
Like sometimes saying, okay, well, this is going on. Oh, damn, Mercury, Mercury's in retrograde again. Like we understand it. It makes us feel a little bit better. And I mean, it does make sense. Like I'm not a connoisseur in astrology at all, but I do find comfort in it sometimes. And it's like, yeah, like planets and stuff are like moving around, shifting. Of course, how does that not affect us, right? I mean, even scientifically, like it's got to have an impact.
And you took the words out of my mouth. A little science for the skeptics, right? So
Right.
you sprinkle a little science on there. You kind of got a little someone who might be
Like,
skeptical of the woo woo. I'm less
yeah,
woo. When I throw,
right.
I'm a lot of woo, but in that case, the skeptic's going to be like, oh, okay, like perk up a little differently than me just channeling the feelings of everything. That could be a little much. So, but
I
like,
love it. I love you. It's great.
so like so I would say 3 years ago, I decided, okay, I'm enough. I'm enough. honor these gifts and like rip the Band-Aid right off and do this. And I feel like Jen, you're just what, 8 years now?
Oh man, 15 years that I've had my business.
Correct. But when did you transition and do more jujitsu? It was
Oh
roughly around,
boy.
I think 8 to
You
10
probably
years.
know this better than I do.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think you're getting
I
close to a decade here.
Yeah, because I've been training jujitsu for about 11 years.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of when it really, I think it, planted the seed. I was already making like my health and wellness changes as soon as I opened Gen Z's, which is
Mhm.
when I was 25. Like I kind of made that same decision to start getting on the healthy track, but I didn't find jujitsu until about 5 years later.
Yeah.
So it is, that's kind of when it entered into my life. Funny enough, and I was talking about this in that fitness class also, is that it started entering my life when I started really getting in tune with my spiritual side, which was
Hmm.
all thanks to you. So that was all kind of at the same time. So yeah, we're talking about that, the start of that. And I think the impact would be about 10, 11 years ago.
Okay. Because my first question that I had, I actually came prepared. I channeled some questions that I really wanted to deep dive with you. But when did you know you knew? Like, when did you know that you knew that you actually needed to make room for this, whether as a new spiritual hustle? When did you, like, what hit you? At what moment did you go, I need to find balance? Or that's a later question, but I need to make room for this. Cause you had,
Mhm.
I mean, I met you. When you had a ton of clients, and I now experiencing what you're experiencing, I couldn't imagine how scary that was for you and for people listening to go off on a whim here and say, you know what? I actually feel something is I have another purpose in this life.
For
How did
sure.
you know you knew that you were going to go ahead and start like a second business and layer and you nurtured your, we'll call it your first love, your child, because I look at it like as a mother, right? Some women are like, oh my God, I don't know how I can love my second as much as I love my first. And then the second comes and you're like, oh my God, this is possible. And that's kind of how I view your journey, was that you loved
Hmm.
aesthetics and you loved makeup and you loved it. Then all of a sudden you loved this just as much. And they weren't really competing. They were siblings, right?
For
But
sure.
they were,
Totally.
but when did you know that you knew that you needed to actually start this as a second career choice opposed to a recreational hobby that brought you joy? When did you know the difference?
I think it was just so much a part of me. Like I think early on I recognized how, especially with jujitsu, how attracted I was to it. And I like fell in love with it instantly. So I was like, okay, this is something that's going to take up a huge portion of my life. And how can I incorporate this? And I really, at first was training and I mean, I even dove into the competition side of things, but I was very much, I'm still a student of the art, but I didn't really start like teaching jujitsu or my women's classes until I was like probably mid blue belt. So that took a few years, right, for me to kind of start training and really getting into it before I even thought that that was like a possibility of me being able to teach. But I did want to start, focusing more on personal training and wellness. And I looked at it, I love your analogy of as a sibling. I think it was, you know, it was doing my soul a disservice if I wasn't kind of acknowledging that all of this was becoming part of who I was. And I felt like they all naturally fit together, right? Because even with aesthetics and makeup, you're focusing on maybe your outer appearance, but with your skin too. I mean, we're trying
Mhm.
to work on, our body as a whole, right? This is
Yeah.
very much mind, body, soul. So then we have, not only like am I trying to incorporate the personal training side, eventually jujitsu side, but then starting to do the Reiki and all that, so all of that kind of, I could tell that my goals were shifting a little bit. And all of a sudden something else was taking up more of that priority and time where I was still getting by on my beauty services, but the passion wasn't there as much. So I think, you know, probably maybe we'll say a year or two into training jiu-jitsu, like I knew that this was, if not right away, that this was something that was going to impact my life. However, it took me years to make the decision though to
Mm.
fully split from that
Yeah.
and to semi-retire. I still can't even say fully retire because when I come home in Chicago, I still take, waxing clients and beauty clients, but it's always going to be a part of who I am. But to semi-retire, because I always felt like that was my business base. Like that was how I made my money. Like I couldn't, that's how I was financially secure. So how could I stop doing that? I couldn't justify not doing it. So for a long time, and I think my space allowed for it, I was able to kind of transition my last location I was in, and I had room for it to be able to have all of these different service offerings. And
Mhm.
it kind of worked. It was very unique. Nobody else was doing anything like that. And I think I was able to kind of tie it all together. Like, hey, this is like mind, body, soul. We're able to work on, wellness, fitness, and beauty, and let's bring it all together.
And I was part of that journey, so I actually got to witness it
You
offhand, and
did. You did.
it was quite the glow up, to say the least. Now, my question is, and this is for people right now that are ready to, they're on that precipice of change and ready to make that leap. Because I feel like a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people are inching their way towards a more spiritually fulfilled life, including how they monetize and how they make their money and
Sure.
how they make their living. Um, Paradigms are shifting. People are changing. This is real life here. This is really happening. In those moments of uncertainty, because we're human, right? We need that. You're going to have those dark days that you're like, what am I doing with my life? And I feel like right now,
Absolutely.
collectively, a lot of people have been having those moments of massive clarity and just pure intuition and guidance from their team above. And then just a
I
tidal
still have
wave of,
those moments.
right, right. And the tidal wave of fear. So in that real transition, when you said, you know what, doors closed, I'm moving, which I'll get into love later because that was also on my list, because I do feel like because you went into full blown alignment, you actually pulled in the love of your life.
Yes. There's a
Which,
let's get back to that.
yes, because I could go everywhere. So how in those moments when, what did you do in those moments where that rumination started or the fear kind of sank in? Because I find myself like toeing the line. Like I'll have like a week where I'm like, "Ooh, I'm doing this, I'm doing else," and then I'm like, I'm doing that, I'm doing this," and and you get a little pushback, right?
You're like,
And
oh
I know
boy. Hmm.
you got pushback. So how did you deal with that when you just had to sit and just kind of like plow through it? What were some take homes that people can apply towards their life and just know to stay on that path? Like how did you handle those days?
Well, there's a few things in those points that you brought up that I want to kind of address. First and foremost, like I said, this took me a long time to kind of make that decision and transition.
Yeah.
And I was doing so much. I think I'm like, I can incorporate all of this, right? And didn't want to let go of something that was successful. Why would we do that, right? That seems silly. So I still kept all my beauty clients. I started teaching, jujitsu. I was podcasting at WGN radio. I was taking Reiki clients, still facials, waxing, makeup, personal training. I mean, it was kind of like, great, I can do all this stuff, but like, holy shit, I'm doing all this stuff. Like I was like overwhelmed if I think about like how much I was doing. So
That's
for a long time, I'm like, I've got to do it all. I've got to do it all because I can't let go of that part, or I wouldn't want to because I don't know that I'd be able to financially be okay. Right. So it took me, well, no, it took COVID. We'll just say that it took something like COVID
hmm
for me to see that like the fear I had about my business surviving or me being able to continue being financially independent without relying on beauty services, that I could actually do that. Because during COVID, as you know, we really, we had to shut down. We couldn't do any beauty services. So it was during that time that I was forced to adapt and create my Body by Zenati app. So it was like getting the hard work. I was doing, created an app, and then I was also able to, take all my personal training clients one-on-one virtually.
Wow.
So thank God I had all that, and I had started that transition where I was, personal trainer, and I was able to teach jiu-jitsu, and I had that base, right? Because I was able to survive off of that. And I actually was making more money off of that than I had been with my beauty clients. So that kind of was like, oh man, not that I wanted, a pandemic to prompt that or make me realize that. But I think that was kind of the eye opener or the moment of clarity, as you
Mhm.
say, where it was like, oh man, I could really do this. And thank God, like I had a backup plan and I wasn't just reliant and focused on my beauty, because what would I have done?
Right. Right.
So that was something, that was scary. It was a scary time for everybody, but I think I really had to kind of just adapt and hustle. So I couldn't really think about those fears as much about me transitioning, my business at that point. It just seemed like the natural and right thing to do. It was more kind of fear about when are we going to get back to work? What's going on with this pandemic? Everything else going on. So I think that just kind of forced me to jump in. And, that's what eventually enabled me to move out here and still see all my Chicago clients and make that decision like, hey, this is my opportunity now when we were back in, we're all able to be back into our spaces, to start, kind of scaling back and semi-retiring from my beauty services.
And in those, I mean, like I said, I was lucky enough to have known you throughout your journey and see how you rose above all that night. And there was a big difference. You know, you had all these new services to offer during the pandemic.
Hmm.
So it
Hmm.
really did, it cleared up some space and time for you to allow this new
Sure.
virtual, part of you that you probably didn't even realize, and maybe you did realize that, maybe your guides did tell you that you could expand on this and get even bigger by having it virtual, right? Because now, like, sky's the limit. You can train and heal and do what you need to do with people everywhere.
For sure. That
So, I
and,
mean,
and yeah,
there are a
that
lot of
was kind of the
positives.
idea. Yeah,
Sadly, the pandemic had a lot of losses, but there was a lot of growth and a lot of positives and a lot of, like, I felt like first rounds of awakenings is during that period. But in those moments when especially in the beginning when you said it, like, you were everywhere, you weren't
hmm,
letting go of
right.
certain things, right?
Hmm.
Because you probably felt this, I feel this need, and you probably felt this need that you needed to show up. You needed to be committed. You didn't want to let anyone down. You didn't want to disappoint anyone, right? In those
Absolutely.
moments where you then said, I need to honor what's best for me. And you chose, being a selfless empath that you are. How did you deal with those moments? Because there's just no way that guilt didn't flood in, or fear didn't flood in, or like, what am I? So how did you navigate that? And because you did it very gracefully.
Well, thank you for that. It's challenging. Like when you have a business for so long as you have too, and we've been in this industry, it's
Mhm.
hard, even just emotionally you know, to not see your clients or you have that connection or to say goodbye. For me, it was a hard goodbye because I really kind of tied everything into, okay, I'm made the decision to move, with my husband. At the time, not yet, but then we were
Yeah.
engaged. So it was, making that decision to come out. So, I really set that hard line where I'm like transitioning my business. I'm shutting the doors of my brick and mortar. I don't need that expense anymore. And I'm saying goodbye to clients that I've had for, you know, 12 years,
Yeah.
13 years. And so that was really hard. And it was, I'm like, am I doing the right thing? I was even thinking maybe I should transition into aesthetics out here. I mean, now it's like one of those things when I go back home too, I still see clients because I miss them and I want to see them,
Yeah.
but it's something I could do a little bit at a time. But of course, people were, and I think one of the reasons I hung on for so long doing so much is because you feel that guilt. You don't want to let people down.
Mhm.
And it's like, well, why not? I could do it. I guess I do have the time. I could fit it in. And all these people rely on you. And it's just so hard to make that choice. It's a fear thing. It's hard to justify. Like, is this right? Am I going to give up this
Mhm.
business? I think it's hard to like, I don't know, with our upbringing, and I don't know if this is like Catholic or Italian guilt or whatever. Like, why am I going to turn down like money? How am I going to say no? I work
Right.
hard for that. I have that clientele. Like, and now I'm
Right.
going to just go off and do something else and have to build
Oh
that.
yeah, God.
You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying?
Oh
Okay.
yes. Hitting
Yeah.
close to the heart.
So, right.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of that in there too. But I did my best to kind of, I have to say, my clients though were all very supportive of what I was doing, and they like loved the fact that I was doing jujitsu and like competing. And I think they loved watching that as I put that out on social media, and they were very much a part of it.
Yeah.
Still very sad to see that I was, gonna be shifting away from beauty, but I think they were encouraging of that. And some people I transitioned into my wellness and health services, which was a bonus. But at the end of the day, I had to, after so many years, just follow my heart and my gut. And
Mhm.
I'm like, this is scary as heck, but I've got to make this decision. And the proof was in the pudding for me, as I said, when, COVID hit, and the one thread where I was like, I can't give up my beauty services because that's what's financially supporting me and paying the bill.
Yeah.
As soon as that stopped and I was in a better place financially, I'm like, okay, Jed, that's the universe telling you, like, I can't use that as an excuse anymore.
Right. Right.
But I would meditate on it. I would journal, for useful tools. I'd really sit and just kind of even, looking at what can my life be like? What do I see myself doing? Paying attention to like what my gut instinct or reaction was to feel that. Of
Mhm.
course, talking to, Jay was super supportive, my family, those people closest to me. You were always so supportive of seeing how my business evolved.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so I had great people in my life, but ultimately I had to make that decision, right? People are like,
Mhm.
we'll support what you want to do, but you've got to make that decision. And my sister, it was just like everything kind of aligned for me. And I kept asking the universe for that guidance and that support and that
Yeah.
help, and would just try and meditate on it as much as I could and just pay attention to really how I was feeling and trusting that.
So I know because halfway through though, you hadn't had Jay yet, and
Hmm.
I feel that when, especially for you, and I feel like you're like living proof of it, when you really honor your soul, I mean, deep down your soul, when you make your soul sing and you get into that alignment, I really do feel like that is the key to finding your person.
Hmm.
Truly, is when you are
For
at
sure.
like this state of like almost, happiness, a satori, or whatever you want to call it, however you want to label it. But when you are just in this flow and you are like literally in your flow and it bopped you over the head, you weren't even
Hmm.
looking for it,
No, I wasn't.
like at all. And don't you now look back and reflect on, had you have not honored yourself and become the sovereign being and honored your many gifts and you expand on your gifts, it was like, oh, I'm good at this, but guess what? I'm evolving, I'm growing, I'm good at this and I'm good at this. And you kept growing and you kept like dipping your toe into this and like, oh, I actually like this, I can do this as well. So the more we all watched you have this massive glow up. You were disconnected from, you were so connected to yourself, but disconnected to, if it happens, it happens. You were very much you're open to it.
Absolutely. Hmm.
But then you met I mean, and I was at your wedding. I felt and saw the love there. I've never, ever, ever once seen in my life two sides of a family get together
Hmm.
and get along. Like, I've never seen that before. Like, I've never seen so much love in one single room, really, truly. So I witnessed it. I've seen it. you have met your person, you've met your other half. And I feel like it's because you were exactly where you needed to be.
Totally. I and I just wrote my blog about this.
I know. That's why
Basically
I shared
too.
it.
And it's like people say like, what's the secret to true love? And I was kind of at that point where, and I'll say like, don't look for it. Like you have to love yourself first.
Yeah.
And I think after my divorce and after everything, I kind of had time for myself to heal. And I was very protective of myself. So I
Mhm.
threw myself into everything. Even during my marriage, it was like my first marriage, it was jiu-jitsu. It was everything I
Yep.
wanted to do. Like I wouldn't let anything stop me from what I wanted to do.
No.
And that was one thing. And that I was like, no matter what was going on, like I want to do this, I'm going to do this. So I'm very much, I'm a Capricorn. I mean, I'm very goal oriented. So it was like, that wasn't going to stop me, but I just kept, I think that's what I needed. Like I just kept working on myself and then like
Mhm.
getting into that like spiritual journey and really connecting with myself, finding who I was and what's my purpose and my mission. And jujitsu, like jujitsu is very much mind, body, soul. So all of that helps me connect with myself and give me the strength and empowerment I needed. But, it had been several years and I didn't really date much. Like I said, I was very protective and didn't really need that. I was like, I can't do this online stuff. And so I think it was too old school, but it was when, it's funny. There were a few things at play. I think I was very connected to who I was and what I needed to be doing.
Mhm.
Um, Jay's sister-in-law, Jen, kind of put some stuff out in the universe. And after we like met and had our magical moment, the holiday after my Nana Mary passed. And
Oh,
I
wow.
think
I just got chills.
I'm like, I feel like my Nana brought him to me
Mhm.
when I was ready. I would not have been ready before that point.
Mhm.
With
Mhm.
everything that was going on, she was our priority. I was focused on so much. I was still healing. And it was like the timing was like, bam, right there. And it was, like you said, it just kind of like hit me over the head. I mean, it was a magical, like energetic, like electrifying moment
Oh, yeah.
when we're like, oh, this is something. Okay.
No, and I know that almost seems like I'm going to come full circle with why I brought this up, because
Hmm.
I feel like the biggest take home for people that are listening is, if you don't make that blind leap of faith and you play it safe, right,
Hmm.
your whole life, I think you're like a prime example of what you can't have when you just do it. You rip that bandit off and you just go with it. And you'd always just go with it. And no matter how hard it got, you just kept moving forward. You kept, well, it's typical Capricorn. You guys climb the mountains.
Of course.
That's a Capricorn. They
No
are,
matter how long it takes.
yes, they will continue climbing, period. But that is such a turnaround and a take home, that had you have not done what you did and just honored what felt right for you and your soul, like, it's just nuts. I think that more people need to just, I'm not saying that there aren't people that are doing it, but I know, with all the readings I've been doing and all the messages I've been channeling, I know people need to hear this, because people need to know that it's going to be okay. That you may not see
Yeah.
fully what's coming in for you, but when you're just in your flow and you're just being you, you're going to cash out your blessings and they're going to keep unfolding. And now I feel like you have your other half. And now I feel like you have been growing like even more, because now
Yeah.
you have love in your life, and it's true authentic love. It's true intimacy is what it is. The stuff that you've done with Jay in your life, it only amplified the stuff that you were already doing alone.
It was funny the other day. I said something to him and I think I was frustrated. You know, things take time. And especially as you start, you're an entrepreneur and you're doing a lot of content creation, and don't get me started on social media, but it can
Yeah.
frustrate me so
Yeah.
much. So
Mhm.
it's, but it's an essential tool if you are self-employed and you're trying to build your business and market, it's free, pretty much. And you've got to put that stuff out there, right? So I was saying something and I was frustrated. I'm like, it just seems like it's taken so long. I've been working for myself for 15 years. And Jay's like, yeah, but now you have the right partner. And it's true, so it's like
Oh,
things
I just got you.
are different, when you have someone who is fully supporting you and has your back and is willing, to put in the work with you. And of course, I mean, and Jay's a creative. I mean, like he's an amazing writer. And hey, and if I never found jujitsu too, he still thinks we would have like found each other. But I mean, see, like jujitsu was totally my calling and meant to be because I mean that's what really brought us together was we both did jujitsu. Um, so it's just like with the right partner in your life, I think you have that support because this stuff's not easy and it's not easy to make these decisions, and neither of us, I think, are saying that to people. If you're listening, it's really, really hard, but things that are hard are worth it. Like it's,
Mhm.
risk versus reward. You've got to figure out what is your passion, what truly makes you happy in anything, maybe not just career, but life, relationship. And it's going to be hard. It's going to be scary. It's going to be emotional, but nobody else can do it for you. And
Yeah.
I feel like you can choose happiness. Like that is your choice.
And I
So
know I'm
you
like,
got to
sorry,
run with
not to
it.
cut you off. I know that I am showcasing your rewards in this because I want people that are in this transition right now.
Mhm.
We have a lot going on in the sky, but energetically, there's a lot. I mean, there is so much going on, but so many people are choosing to rip their own band-aids off and take that leap of faith. And people are
Right.
terrified, and they're terrified. And I want to showcase your rewards so that people understand. I'm sure if someone sat there and told you as a young child that this is going to be your future, right? And just
Yeah.
laid it all out there, it would have been like, what? No
I'd be like,
way,
what?
right? But
Yeah.
once you were in your flow, the sky's the limit. But your reward should be showcased to show people that are in these times right now, in this transition of truly I mean, it's not even just a phoenix rising moment for people. I call it spiritual individuation. People are spiritually individuating. People want the truth. They want to know who they are. They want to find themselves. They are seeking out the deeper meaning in life. And that's been going on for years and years and centuries and centuries. But right now, it just feels like you're seeing it more often.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You're seeing these big CEOs walk away from their jobs, or lawyers that are turned into like, you know, a yoga instructor. Who cares? But you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like they're finding that there's a deeper meaning of life, and they kind of want to not even so much like slow down the pace, but they want to feel more connected. And even when you're connected, you could be so busy. You could be working 7 days a week and you don't feel like it. It's when we're not connected,
Hmm.
like that we end up it feels like we're kind of going against the grain a little bit. But I was adamant at showcasing your rewards, and that people see that light at the end of the tunnel. That in these
Totally.
times, in these energies, if you find yourself going through a spiritual awakening, or you find yourself wanting to leave your job, and you feel like this bigger purpose or this bop of the head of divination or something tapped you on the shoulder and said, hey, there's more to life than this, especially if it has to do with the spiritual realm. Like, look at you're a prime example of the footsteps that you should follow, right?
You've got
Now,
to pay attention.
absolutely. Now, because you're both, right? You have your hustle, and you're very business orientated, and you're very spiritual, right? Like
Mhm.
you have that, ability to kind of go back and forth with a very practical, pragmatic, realistic, you're an earth sign, right? That's
Mhm.
part of who you are. What do you do? And I know you've done podcasts on this, so this might be redundant and repetitive, but what do you do to keep your spiritual practice alive and thriving? Like, what are your spiritual hygienes? Because just like you, I get you, because there's days that I'm doing book work, or I'm looking at numbers, or I'm not in my woo, right?
Sure.
I'm not in the woo. But then there's days that I need to do what I need to do to get back into my woo and to go
Mhm.
there, you know. What do you do? What's part of your spiritual practices? And I know that you had mentioned to me before in a personal conversation we had that Jay took you to buy crystals. So obviously that is part of your spiritual practice at all. But what do you do individually? And then do you and Jay do things? Is share, like, do some things to do with spiritual hygiene? What do you incorporate? Like, how do you find that balance between running your own businesses, social media marketing, and everything else you do? I can't list it anymore. I can't.
All of it, all of it.
All of it.
So, so there's, if I get off track, prompt me, because there's a lot there from what you brought up that I want to kind of touch base on. But listen, the hustle is hard. Like, I think people are wanting to make changes because, and especially I think we realized this during COVID, who wants to flip and hustle all the time? And I would say that, and I just wrote an article, handle your hustle. And it's like, you got to hustle. I'm so busy. Nobody's getting sleep and da da da. First of all, I have to have 8 hours sleep per night. That's one of the most important things. So
Sleep.
that is one
Y'all
of the,
heard sleep.
that is what I do right there. That is part of my spiritual practice, is get your sleep, people, please. So, you know, it's, it's like, it's draining, right? And especially if you are not happy in your career, that's even more trying, right? So, I'm fortunate, like, we have a lot of things going on, and we are part of a lot of different roles, and it can get very tiring, but a lot of it is everything we really love. So we're doing a lot of things we love, but of course we're human, and it still can, wear on you, especially when you have like no day off in 2 weeks. And I'm going to tell you, we have like one day off, Sundays, sometimes. It depends. Sometimes there's events going on, or sometimes we have computer work, catch up for the week. So it's very hard. It's very essential, I should say, that we find these times, right, for us to work things in, because balance is hard and balance is tricky. We're not always going to be in full balance. Sometimes it's going to be like the off balance is my balance for the week, right? This is kind of what I need to focus on and what my priority is this week. So the balance shifts a little bit. But I really, I need to get my sleep every night. That's super important for me. I also, something I started doing recently is utilizing essential oils again. I kind of went back to some of this because I feel like for a while I was getting so much stuff like set up here and kind of just, you know, anchoring into my role out here at the gym and managing everybody and teaching and promoting, new business endeavors and stuff. So it was hard for me to kind of take some of that time for me spiritually. So
Yeah.
recently I've tried really kind of incorporating that a little bit more again. So, even in the morning, it's like I'll take, my dog for a walk, take Bria out, make sure I'm like smelling in the fresh air, like I'm outside. Like that's something that just kind of helps start my day. So I've had a good night's sleep. I go outside in the morning, get fresh air. And then, you know, I come in and I utilize my essential oils. So I might use a little bit of like Palo Santo or some peppermint to just take nice deep breaths in. I'll put it like on my temples or behind my neck, and just, even peppermint kind of on my solar plexus, just to help with digestive issues too.
Oh,
And just,
I
yeah,
love
peppermint's
that.
great, but it just kind of helps like give me that energy, right? And it's a little thing, to do, but it makes me feel good, right? That's the whole point. So, I have all my crystals now too, because yes, we have gone crystal shopping. So, I have my little palette of crystals here on my desk. And then, when I do have time, I like to do a little bit of a longer meditation. That of course doesn't happen every day, but I take a moment at the end of each night, and this is, I'm not super like religious. I like to say I'm more spiritual, but I have time for for prayer, and I have my Nana's rosary next to my bed. And I just, I have to do these little things. They're almost like little like touch points, right? To kind of just like be present and,
I
and
love
kind
it.
of bring me back in that moment. It's just like, okay, I have my Nana's bell here from her house. It's like little weird
Oh,
things like this.
I
And
love
I've got to
it.
like ring the bell, and that's like Nana. So stuff like that. I know this can
That's
seem
so,
totally silly,
that's no, but I love the
but
spiritual touch points. That in itself should
yeah,
be that spiritual touch points. Oh my God, I love it.
That stuff, right, just like fills me up. And that's kind of what helps me get through the day. Nice deep breath. I sage all the time. Sage and palo are a staple. So that stuff really helps me. Um, Writing my blogs, honestly, has been something that has helped a lot and is kind of meditative. I think being able to write, you don't have to start your own blog, but just journal or being able to write a little bit, I think, you know, that kind of connects us in a different way and we're able to kind of express our thoughts, and put that out in a physical act. So I think that's something that's super stress relieving. And I mean, the number one for me is going to be jujitsu and fitness and movement. I mean, movement I think is essential. So
Yeah.
no matter what it is, movement can be your meditation. If you're doing yoga, if you're, lifting, if you're a runner, whatever it is, I think setting that time and people would be like, really? Is that like a meditation? That's time for you. To me, any self-care is meditative. I mean, that's time for you. You're doing something that makes you
I
feel good.
mean, I thank you. I think that should be a post in itself
I mean,
because
that's like
I
numero
can't.
uno.
Well, because I feel like, not
Next
to
to
cut you
sleep.
off, but I feel like the spiritual community has come and has become a little mainstream. And I'm gonna get a lot of slack. I'm gonna get in trouble for saying this, but I'm just in one of those moods today. I feel
Go
like
for it.
people have gotten caught up on the tangible, right? They've gotten caught up on this, like, oh my God, I'm gonna have a bad, and talk about this to my viewers too. Like, you're not gonna have a bad day because listen, I have an opal light in my hand because it's on my desk. And I naturally
Mhm.
grab it because it's on my desk. But if I leave the house and I don't have this, it's not gonna ruin my day.
Right.
Right?
I agree with you
Because
100%
your
on that.
spiritual practices become something that are internal, right? And you nailed it by, I wrote this down, your spiritual touch points. To have these touch points throughout the day are just as going to give you just as much clarity and grounding as a person that has a luxury to meditate for 20, 30 minutes a day. And I'm not saying everyone, if they really, really wanted to, they can, but you're a busy, you're a real working woman.
Yeah,
And there has to be a balance between the reality of what a lifestyle looks like, a very grounded individual and their lifestyle that looks like, to having the balance of still being a spiritual being. Because I feel like it's within you. It's within you.
absolutely.
And I love the idea and the concept of spiritual touch points. You have your go to things that it's a quick, it brings you back in,
Hmm.
brings you back down. And that's all it
Yep.
takes. And I think
Quick
people
fix.
get caught up in the minutia of like, I need to meditate or I need to do this candle. I need. And then it feels like homework. Then there's this pressure and then it changes the vibrations of the whole thing. But that whole like self-care component of like movement, 100%, because I get most of my downloads during like, I'm like an 80s mom. I power walk in the morning. I'm got get the alarm
It's
going.
amazing.
I do.
Yeah.
And that's
I'm
when I get
not,
my downloads.
yeah, I don't think you have to be your spiritual being if you meditate for 30 minutes to an hour each day. Like, who the heck has time for that? I don't.
No.
So,
And truthfully,
but
I
that
don't get
doesn't
my
mean I'm
downloads
not,
that way.
yeah, no, that doesn't mean I'm not a spiritual person.
No.
Don't, it looks different for everyone.
It looks different for everyone. And that's my biggest, because I'll do a guided meditation to fall asleep in because I love it. It works for me. It really works for me. But
Right.
I love the spiritual touch points. I think that is brilliant because it helps people feel less guilty for not carving out that time to
Totally.
be
And it
like
could take a minute.
spiritual.
Right. Take 3 deep breaths, when you're stressed. That could be a form of meditation. Anything you're doing for yourself in that moment when you
Mhm.
feel like, and I think paying attention to that too. If you feel like you're really overwhelmed or you need a second to take a breath, do that.
Yeah.
You can go to the bathroom, you can go somewhere, like whatever you need to do to just nice deep breath, like take a second and reset. I think that's really important. Movement is essential. Like I said, I think eating well is really, really important and paying attention to what you're putting into your body because we can put a lot of things into our body that make us not feel so good. So I think that's also something where we're treating our body, pretty much like a temple. And of course, we're going to have, moments and splurges and fun times. But if you're really fueling yourself with a lot of good stuff and good nutrition, you're going to feel pretty good. And I feel like you're at a higher vibration when you do that. And everything else kind of falls into place a little bit better, So I think it's kind of common sense stuff like that, even like water, all of that stuff is important to our body and our vitality. And in turn, see how that all connects with our spiritual being,
Right.
and frequencies at night. I always have a frequency on at night when
Yeah.
I sleep. And then there is time, like you were saying. So that's a lot of individual stuff I can do. But when we do have more time, and I shared with you, on a call where it was like 2 weeks, I hadn't had a day off. I was like trying to leave the gym on a Saturday. I was there until about 3 o'clock. I'm getting home. There was a member who needed some extra guidance, and then a coach needed some support. And like, I'm just waiting for my like day off. Let me get home. And it was like everyone needed like an extra bit of me. And I walked in the door and Jay was like, I like almost collapsed. I'm like, I can't. I'm so tired. I'm done. He took my bag and he's like, why don't you go shower up and we're going to put on a guided meditation and just relax. And he's like, I sound like you. Like, this is you. And this is how you've rubbed off on me. And I'm now able to kind of help support you when you need it. And so he's really good about that. Secretly, he loves doing that too. But he's really good about that and checking in and making sure I'm getting my time or we're getting that time together. So maybe if we do have, a longer period of time, we can do a guided meditation together, or we can go crystal shopping. I mean, literally, like, we go on a Friday to pick up food in downtown Tacoma Park. There's a crystal shop down the street. Let's put in our sushi order and go pick out, a crystal. And then we go to our favorite Tacoma Bevco, and I have like my one glass of wine or something while we're waiting for our sushi, and then it's like a little date, right? So that's self-care.
I hope everyone just listened to how perfect that is. That is so, like,
if you ever come out here and visit me, we could do that too. So just saying.
I'm like, so.
But it's like, it's perfect. I mean, I don't want to say perfect, but that's how we're able to kind of bring that like energy back in. And it's very restorative. And that's like, we'll have our restorative weekends sometimes. Like, we don't want to do anything, we're not going to make plans. So I think that's important. Like, pay attention. There's always so much going on. But like, maybe it's like you want to stay in and watch a show. Maybe you want to go out and take a hike. Maybe, whatever it is. But like, do things for you and carve that time out. I'm huge on planning and organization, also because of the Capricorn in me. But I fully believe you can just schedule in anything you need and you can make it happen.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think if you already take the initiative and you're proactive on putting it in your schedule, like, just do it. Just do it. Just put it in. Like, even when I have like dinner with my girlfriends, literally, I'm like, okay, before we leave this table and we're saying our goodbyes, I'm like, let's put another date in. Even if it's 2 months from now, it's already in our calendar. And I feel like people just, even if they honor their spiritual practices that way, like today I'm going to spiritually cleanse my house, or I'm going to take a bath. I mean, and I think that's why I like your approach on it, because you are, like I said, a real working woman that balances out their spiritual practice, their physical practice, their marriage, and being a stepmother. There's a lot of moving parts. You're wearing many, many, many hats, and you do it very gracefully. And all of which would not have happened had you not taken that blind leap and decided, you know what, I'm doing this. I'm going towards my soul and what makes my heart sing. Like, literally, all of this, you would have been successful regardless, and something magical would have happened, no doubt in my mind. But I think you really found a path, and it really resonated with you. And you're like, I'm staying here. This feels right. And didn't let anyone take you off of it.
Yeah, no. You've got to stay in line with what you're doing. And sometimes when you have doubts, I've been having just some doubts too, sometimes on like, what am I transitioning into? Am I, I've just launched some new stuff and just trying to put out more content to people and trying to create some events. And I mean, my friend Maya and I out here just put together this ladies jiu-jitsu jam that we literally, like, first of all, how her and I connected is just a whole other podcast. I'm going to have her on next week, guys, so stay tuned. But we are just like perfect partners and training partners, and like, jiu-jitsu sisters. It's like
Wait, when's her
just meant
birthday?
to be. I gotta find out. I know I'm so bad. I'm not as good with birthdays
That's
as
fine.
you are. She might. No, wait. I think Maya is also a Capricorn.
I was gonna say she feels like an Aquarius. Is she a January? Like, is she on cusp?
I gotta see. I'm gonna get back to you.
Okay.
No, I think we're like a few days apart,
Okay.
honestly. So, but we worked. I mean, great jujitsu training partners, and now like we created this event, and we're like, who knows who's gonna show up? If this is gonna be a good thing. We had 80 women show up at our first jujitsu event yesterday. I'm still like buzzing off of that. I'm
No,
so
that's
happy.
just magical.
80 flipping women. Like, what? I was like, we had someone fly in from South Carolina. Someone came from Pennsylvania. There were people from like Richmond, which is like far, I mean, it's a drive. I can't even. So anyway, you've just got to, like, when something feels right, that's the point. Like, you just go with it. Sometimes it's something you least expect, but like, if something feels good,
Wow.
honor it and it will happen.
And you were in your flow. Let me tell you, you're in your flow.
It was,
That's
it was
how it
amazing.
works, you guys. It really is.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's simple, but that's truly how it works. But you can't
Yep.
get there if you're letting your ego like just drown you and be
You
riddled
got to
with
trust.
spirit. You gotta
No,
trust.
you've got to trust. You got to
Whew.
let go. You've got to trust and just do. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? You're going to fail or it's not going to go well. I mean, I think when you think about that, and that's something I would think about a lot. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? If I like know what the fear is, or if I write it down,
Mhm,
it's less scary. Because when
mhm.
things float around in our minds and we just constantly think about it, that's why I think journaling is really important too, because we can like write that stuff down. It's a physical act of releasing and putting it on paper, but then we can look at it. And when we look at it on paper, it's a little less scary than it is in our head.
Agreed.
So if you're like, if you are led by fear and you're like, I don't know what I would do, write down what is the worst case scenario and what would you do in that scenario if that happens. Oftentimes the worst case won't, knock on wood. We hope it doesn't, but at least you tried, you don't want to regret never trying.
I love it. No,
That's
I
how I
love
feel.
it. I really appreciated being able to kind of be in this is it was still very nerve-wracking, I'm not gonna lie, to be able to ask you questions and be the interviewer. I'm the interviewer, right? That's how you technically would say
Yes,
that.
you're amazing.
But
And you've been in this transition.
I'm in it still. I'm in it. I'm in the thick of it. I am definitely in the thick of it. Yeah. And
But yeah, you're
it's
in the
hard.
juggling act like I was for a
And it's
while.
totally I'm in the juggling act. And it's I wouldn't say honoring myself is the hard part. It's just a lot of things have been illuminated and a lot of where's my support, where's not. And it really is the validation is within you, your spirit team, and your
Mhm.
higher power, which is for me, which is God. And honoring that and staying just on that path and saying, I don't care. This was right for me. Right. And just like you
Yeah,
with the guilt and the upbringing and stuff like that, you kind of naturally want to um you don't want people to feel like I don't want to make anyone feel like I'm leaving them behind and it has nothing to do with that. It just
sure.
really
No,
is where are my needs? What do I need to do?
right.
But yeah, I'm definitely in the thick of, but it's funny now that I'm just kind of surrendering and letting go and just going with it. It's moving very fast.
I'm
It's
so
once
proud of
you
you.
shoot those rockets of desire that, why am I blanking on who says that? Abraham Hicks. She's all about rockets
Oh,
of desire, right? It really it does. And it works quickly. It
but
once
that's when you know,
that's
right?
when the universe is like mirroring you and you're like, oh, I figured it out.
Like,
This is amazing.
okay, this obviously is like working, or there's something, it's like, okay, there's the signs in the universe, like,
It's
you know,
working. They will show you what's not, and they will show you what
yeah.
is.
But I remember when you like first started kind of making a little bit more of the transition and shifting into the spiritual side. And I think it took you a long time
Oh,
to
it took me a
be
long time.
confident
Oh God, yeah.
in even what you've been doing recently. Like, and I feel like making that leap, like it's incredible. Like you're amazing. So you
Thank you.
need to follow. I always, I fully support you in your endeavors, and whatever makes you happy is ultimately what I want to see for you.
Yeah.
But you are just so gifted and talented, and you're so amazing. You're so natural. Like you're just a natural at all of this. And like I love your readings and I love everything you put out there in your content. And it's just you do it with ease. And I think that's a huge sign. And I think people are drawn to that and got to keep going with it.
Oh yeah, and I feel like I've been a very much a closeted version of myself for many years,
Hmm.
and just letting this run freely through me and channeling these words and just like instead of, I'd always just second guess myself or like maybe I should say that, maybe I should record that, or I would, it's that vulnerability aspect where you put it out there and then you're like, oh, what are people gonna think? And now it's kind of like, you
Sure.
know what? I changed my perspective on it, or I changed my lens. It's not so much what are people going to think. It's maybe there's someone out there that needs to hear this.
Mhm.
It's not about me. I took myself out of it. I
Yes.
took myself
Yes.
out of it. My ego was still very much at play in the beginning. And, along with working with some mentors that taught me what they needed to teach me. And they were in my life for a reason, a season, and what have you, and wish them well and
Hmm.
wish them away. But I think I didn't realize that I was working alongside people that unfortunately might have been threatened by my abilities, right?
Right.
So once I got like the pandemic, I was alone for long enough that I heard everything. I heard everything I needed to hear, and I saw everything I saw what I needed to see, and I stopped knocking on it and I stopped hiding it. I stopped
That's
hiding it.
awesome.
Right. I
Right.
did. I had to take that blind leap of faith just like you did. But and yeah, it's like now I'm open, I'm comfortable, and I'm telling, my dad, who's obviously, as you know, is from Italy, that I think your mother has reincarnated herself as a deer and she talks to me, and I want to
I
talk to
love
dead
it.
people from now on. Like, and that's it. So you know, I know this is not what you wanted your daughter to be, but listen,
Oh, Dio,
your
that's
mom's a
awesome.
deer, and I'm talking to the dead. Like yesterday I was cleaning out his house and I had a 15-minute call. I had someone book a reading and they were all waiting for me because we were going out to lunch. And I sat in my car and did a 15-minute session for a woman connected to her to what felt like a son brother. She raised this young gentleman and he came through right away. So they sat in my car. I was done the reading. They're like, how did it go? I'm like, oh, so and so came through and this is what he looked like. And they just all like looked at me. And I was like, so what are we having for
Like,
lunch? Because I know they
right.
can't. They're like,
Sure. Sure.
they're like in this
You're like,
car. Now we're in this car. But I've been able to just kind of like make light of it. And, I'm grateful that, it's all about the way you see things, right?
totally. You
Your
can detach from
lens.
that and go on to, it's, yeah.
And I realized I had to work on my balance of this is who I am in my woo woo, but I'm still
Hmm.
Mare.
Right.
I'm a Mare. My family
Yeah.
call I'm Mare. I'm miscellaneous on stage, miscellaneous magic on stage. That's my channeling name.
Yep.
But I'm to them, I'm a Mare. And and finding that balance between that. Ooh, sorry,
We're
did
here.
we disconnect?
No, we're here.
Okay, sorry. Of course I have a cousin that called me. Um, who called me to, because I called it in. I called her in because she calls me Mare, literally.
Of
But
course.
it's finding that balance between being not feeling like you need to disconnect. You just are finding that balance between all these different worlds.
Totally.
And it's
And
cool.
that's the fun of it. It's awesome.
And
It's about being real and authentic with it. It's like, you're not uptight about whatever, it's like, this is who I am and whatever. And to these people, to this person,
Mhm.
you're going to be different for a lot of people. So,
And it's okay. And
and it's okay.
I'm just happy being Mare. as I am Miscellaneous Magic, as I am
I love
MLC,
it.
whatever you want. I'm perfectly happy. I've now just integrated all these, you know, these different personalities I have going on,
For
and
sure.
I've just made
Hey,
one with it. I've come to peace with that. They're all part of me.
that's awesome. Like the Gen Z, Jennifer Lynn, it's like
Exactly.
you're so
Exactly. But no, it was a pleasure to be able to interview you today and to
thank
showcase
you.
your no risk, no reward, no risk, no reward.
I love it. That's
Yeah,
amazing. I think that's gonna have to be the
that's the
title. Now I'm
title.
gonna have to
Yeah.
write this description. I should be like, Mary Lou, you want to write the title and description? But I got you. I love
I'm
it.
not a
I
good
love
writer.
it. This was amazing though. So like I said, and we've told the audience we're going to come on and hopefully do an energy report like
Yeah.
every quarter or so, which I think is fantastic. But I appreciate you. This was phenomenal. It's nice to have this role reversal a little bit and kind of be the, interviewee.
I was
So
hoping
thank
you
you so much for that opportunity.
because when's the last time you got to sit and talk about your journey? You've been interviewing everyone and talking about theirs.
It's
Yeah.
been a
No,
long
I'm
time.
happy that I was able to do this. Really, really am.
Well,
This is exciting for
thank you
me.
very much. I hope it was helpful. And everybody, you got to follow Mary Lou on Instagram. It's at Miscellaneous Magic, right?
Miscellaneous_magic 22 on Instagram and TikTok.
Awesome. Love it. I can't get that
I know
TikTok down.
that
Not for
the
me.
TikTok is, yeah, I get it, but definitely under Miscellaneous_magic 22 on Instagram.
Love it. Thank you so much. And to all the listeners, anybody you'd like me to have on the podcast, send me a message on my Instagram at all things Gen Z. And we'll see you guys soon. Thanks. Bye. Bye.
Bye.